Hey, there's Up Maniacs. You're listening to another episode of the Shop Talk Show podcast, all about front-end web design and development and more. Ding, ding, ding.
And more.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing today?
Oh, gosh, I just couldn't be better, really. It feels like everything is perfect right now.
Everything
just
is
kidding, but this
perfect.
show is perfect.
All my kids are all kids are healthy. We are doing great. No problems. So
Yeah, I was clean, definitely out in the snow with I'm like glad I didn't take my my hose off the house, which is kind of a mistake. I feel like you should kind of spin that stuff down in the winter where it gets real cold, like where we live, which I didn't. But I'm glad it wasn't, because I had all the mats out in my car just spraying puke off of them in my snowy front yard. That's where we were at after dude.
yeah. No, we had my son, every time there's a 3-day weekend, like President's Day, he decides he's also sick the next day. Like statistically, he misses the day after a long weekend. And man, as a parent, that's a tough
this
one.
has already been long.
Yeah, it's been, well, it's like, I gotta get back to work. Like, if we're it's a tight week of work here, bud. So like, I gotta get back into it. So, but
yeah,
oh well. But he's at the age he can just watch TV all day. So he just watched Adventure Time while I worked, and then he came into my office, and I was on a call, Chris.
Yeah,
I kid you not. I'm on a call with two women, and he farts. He cuts a fart. And the two women I was on a call with were cool and did not say anything, but they didn't know he was in my office. So
no. You're like, if you heard some flabbergastation, that was my son.
So what do I do, Chris? Do I follow up? This is my advice show. What do I do, Chris? Do I follow up with these people and say I didn't cut the beef, or do I just let it go? Just go full silence.
I would. Those red buttons that they sold at like Staples or whatever? I would write in like white mark, like some kind of white paint on a fart button, and put it somewhere visible in your office. So next time you have a meeting with them, be like, oh, he probably just leaned his elbow on the fart button.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So some sort of elaborate ruse to cover up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would never fart in a meeting with my butt.
No, I don't do that. But at least I'm on mute. No, yeah, it was I was just like, thankfully I wasn't on camera, or maybe I should have been on camera, because I just like turned around. I was like, dude, what? Anyway, it's just whatever, man.
Yeah, you'll learn life skills later.
Life with the preteen over here. So there you go. So.
There's, we have some questions we can get to. We have some weekly news that came up. I mean, we didn't mention that Interop dropped. I guess it's almost 2 weeks ago now, or is it? Or a week and a half or something?
Yeah.
By dropped, I mean they have announced what the topics for Interop will be. And it's always an interesting process, because, people do, there's like a GitHub repo or something when you publish ideas. And you don't really vote. There's no voting, but there is a lot of like thumbs upping and stuff. And in years past, I've tried to compare what got chosen to how many up thumbs things got. And there was like a little correlation, but not much. And I also went into it like very open-minded. Like, I don't actually care though. Like, I don't think that things should necessarily be chosen by up votes. Because there's stuff that like needs to get where it's like almost like it would be just as valuable if you picked the things with the least upvotes when it comes to Interop.
Right.
Because it's like sometimes stuff needs to get fixed that isn't very hot, But the list is out. The Agalia podcast fellas did a good episode on it. I don't think we need to like go up and down the list necessarily, other than to say the two ones that I think people are going to be like hell yeah about is the anchor positioning and pop-ups. Because they go together like peanut butter and jelly, baby. And if they worked across all three browsers, I think that's going to have a big impact on stuff. That's not to say that everything else on this list isn't also awesome. So please do all of it. I like all of it. And whatever your process is, please keep doing it forever.
Yeah. It's like I want all this stuff, Navigation API was kind of like a cool surprise, I guess, 'cause I think that like really fixes a lot of JS routing, at scope is cool, but I feel like it's in, or I guess it's only in Chrome maybe right now, but
I'm working on a talk about scope and CSS. I'm going to be at CSS Day, I think it's called, in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Nice.
And it should be interesting because there's a lot more to talk about with just the concept of scope, which is my talk, of which I think at scope is actually kind of a small part of it. It's not that I like totally despise it, but I'm just like, I don't know. It's just not my favorite CSS feature, particularly because I work on lots of different CSS and never look at that and be like, ooh, I'm going to use that. Like it just has no, ooh, I'm going to use that feature to me. I say that when it just came up yesterday at work where we are looking at ways to do, because we have like a little bit of light mode, dark mode stuff at CodePen, but mostly not. We're going to more lean into it fully when the new editor comes out. And when you're designing a component-based website that uses custom properties for light mode, dark mode, or potentially lots of modes, it really is nice to kind of scope the variables and stuff to individual components, and possibly sometimes be able to have those components in a different color state than their neighbors or parents.
Sure, yeah.
And there is some stuff in @scope in CSS that does assist with that a bit. That what do they call that? Proximity scoping is actually kind of interesting. So I might, who knows? Maybe it'll be next week. I'll be like, Dave, have you seen @scope? It's amazing,
Right. One other one that was kind of cool was view transition APIs. So that's rad.
I think they specifically scoped it to the SPA style.
Oh, the SPA style. Boo! Everyone stinks.
But does it really say that? I'm reading the README here. Focus our proposal for same document
transitions.
Yeah, but it's like that stuff is so tied together that I would think that a browser team digging into view transitions, like, couldn't you see them just being like, oh, screw it, let's just get it done while we're in here?
Yeah, I actually, Safari has it. Safari has this weird back behavior, the swipey, like where it reveals the whole thing, and when you go back, so there's like one little piece that I kind of need, like, to like disable the animation, because like Safari like saves a picture of it, and then if you like 3-finger swipe back or whatever, it'll like show the old state. And then it'll run the view animation. So I need a way to disable that, but whatever.
Ooh.
I'm splitting hairs there. But
disable the view transition or disable the 3-finger swipe?
And there is a way to disable that view transition in like, it's like if user agent transition or something like that, you can like just bail. But there's not one for navigation auto. Hold on, I gotta let my whiny dog out. 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey. Dogs. Okay. Sorry. So anyway, there's one, like, if there's a UA transition, you can just like say, okay, I'm not going to do my view transition, but there's no way if you're setting like at view transition navigate auto or whatever, there's no way to bail on that if there's a native or a browser UA transition or something. So anyway, that's kind of like one niche thing I need, but
I just fixed this Safari bug yesterday. There's a web compat kind of site where you like log bug tickets that are so you've seen this thing. Yeah, it was kind of new to me, but it was like, look, this works in this browser but not this browser, and then you can shame people or whatever. And it was Jen Simmons sent it to me. There's a problem on CodePen, and I was like, well, I'm on it, I'd love to. I don't want to be on that list, but here's what it was. It was iframes have attributes on them. There's allow attributes, and then there's an attribute called sandbox. That's they're kind of like the opposite of allow attributes. It's very restrictive. It makes a iframe very restrictive until you put values in that attribute that allow certain things. One of them is called allow downloads. Sandbox equals allow downloads, and then if you have just sandbox on there and you don't have allow downloads, you can't download any files. The iframe won't do it, And we didn't have allow downloads in there for Safari for some reason that I can't remember. But in our code base, there's a file that's like maintains this list of attributes, and it would probably offend some people. It says like Safari attributes, Firefox attributes, Chrome attributes, and they're like arrays, and it's like just the list of ones that those different browsers get, and we have to UA sniff to do it. We use some Rails library or gem or whatever that puts classes where they need to be, or something. Or in this case, we don't even need it on the front end. It's like a back end concern, so it figures out on that side. You don't want to do that. That's like not good. But there was just no choice. If you put a sandbox attribute on that thing in a browser that doesn't support it, you get a big nasty red console warning. And like when you're CodePen and you have lots of users and they're playing around in their console because they're developers, do you like seeing big red errors from the website you're trying to work with? No, it's ridiculous. It's a really strong error presentation, I think, for such a silly little, one attribute is wrong. Like HTML tends to be a little more forgiving than that, but it's really noisy about it in all browsers. So I'm like, fine, I'll just put the attributes that you actually support on there so I can not send allow downloads to Safari and not see the big red stupid error, And even in the ticket, it was like, oh, you should put allow presentation on there too. I forget what it does, but I think it enables like full screen mode or something. Who knows? I was like, I'll try it. But then, it's a choice you have to make. In stable Safari, it throws a big red error if you put it on there. But you can enable the flag, and if the flag is on, then it doesn't. And you're like, well, I don't know what to do then. I can't tell if you have a flag on or not. That's like on purposely not allowed on the web,
Yeah. I understand how we got here, like with the whole allows, like the permissions array, I guess,
That's what it is, yeah.
But this like, and I feel like it's a Safari thing, not to poke at Safari, but you have to have the attribute combo correct, like, have you ever tried to like video plays in line, loop
muted,
allow plays in, like you have to have like these 3 or 4 attributes to like make it cook, right? And I think the same, or you can do image source MP4, I guess, or whatever, but like but if you want to, like,
well supported, can you do that across all browsers? Put an MP4 as an image source?
I think you can. Yeah. I think I've done it before, but then that's only looping, right? Like it's but you can add an alt attribute. But if you like then do like a video plays in line, then people can like have controls to stop it, which is also kind of like an accessibility feature,
Yeah.
But like, anyway, I always get tripped up by those sort of like, you need combo attributes to like enable a feature that you're trying to enable, that's like a tough one for me. And I'm going to just throw all of Aria into this bucket too. So you need these combo attributes are difficult to deal with.
They are, and there's no RSS feed you can subscribe to that says like, oh, next week Chrome's dropping like allow PandaFoo. You better allow PandaFoo on there. You know how we know when you have to allow? I just made that up.
But like viewport
it happens all the
UI,
time. What we get is a support ticket from a user who's trying to do something and they can't figure out why, and it turns out to be one of these allow attributes that has changed or added or something. There's no, despite me keeping up with the web like almost professionally, there's no way to know when these attributes change. It's crazy.
How do you get a form to autocomplete with credit card, with the credit card? You know what I mean? Like, there's like 4 or 5 attributes you got to do. You got to do like a pattern. You got to do like a input type number. You got to do like a input type, and then you got to do autocomplete CC, whatever, So, there's. Yeah, and then it just...
I love your Dave's hating on attributes today. I hate attributes.
I hate combos, man. I hate when you're like, oh, if they perfectly set 85 different attributes, it'll be the ideal experience. That's how we'll solve the problem. It's like, no, that's not... Like, we need it more like CSS, where it's like background pink, If you had to be like... background alpha channel 123, background, green channel ABC. Like if you had to set each individual channel every single time you wanted to render a color, you wouldn't do it. Everything would be black and white on the web. So
interesting. Well, speaking of inputs, I had this. I was looking at Adam Argyle. I was trying to find a color mix demo where what I wanted was on the left half you pick a color, on the right half you pick a color, and then it shows you the output of it. I was like, surely somebody has done this, right? I was looking around on CodePen to find it. Sure enough, I find it. It's Adam Argyle.
Mm-hmm.
But how he's designed it is like the top left quadrant of the screen is a big color swatch. Guess what it is? It's an input type of color that's just absolutely positioned into the upper left quadrant of the page, such that you don't have to set a background color or anything. That how color inputs just are a color swatch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that, and then the upper right is a color swatch too of input type color, and you click on either of them, and it brings up the color picker. It's always different depending on what browser you're in. And in fact, I looked at this recently. It's absolutely surprising how different the color pickers are across browsers and platforms. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you pick a color on the left, you pick a color at the right, it color mixes them, and you see what's up in his little demo. But I was like, but I want to color mix different. Color inputs are only hex. Did you know that? They're only hexes. So,
yes. And is it with or without the hash? It's without, right?
Or I think it's with.
With. Okay.
It's
all right.
with the hash in there. But they do not accept, you cannot set the value of it to like OKLCH or, whatever else, RGBA or whatever. It's hash only. So, that in these days, it's like chances of me working with a different color function are pretty high. And color mix works with those. So I was just started to get annoyed at color inputs. I'm like, why can't I set the value of a color input to a valid color string? Like, why is it so limited to hex only? Anyway, it's just a tiny little crusade I was on. And why can't I see what the freaking value is like with my eyes? In no instances in any browser can you see what the value it is. You pick a color from the color picker, you see the color swatch, but you can't tell what it is, the hex code that was chosen, unless the color picker inside of it happens to display it, but most do not. So I just thought that was annoying. I was like, oh, I want to fork Adam's pen and like make it accept color strings too of valid color formats. I was like, how do I do this? Or could I somehow augment a color input to display the value as well? I'm like, ooh, baby web component time, an HTML web component. So it just takes a color input and then you just wrap it in a web component. And then what my little take does is it just added an input type text right next to the input type color, and they're just kept in sync with each other. So it's like 8 lines of web component,
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you set one, it sets the other. You set the other, it sets one. But the question is, what if you put OKLCH in the text input? Like, can it somehow be smart enough to make that color swatch show that value? Well, how would you do that? Wouldn't you need like a fancy color library like Color.js to convert it to something that's useful?
Color.js will convert it for you. So
yeah,
but you'd have to like custom render, right? Like like you need your own swatch, you need your own button, you need your own everything, right?
Well, Eric Merchant in the Discord solved it in a more interesting way. He just took the color string and just applied it to a custom property, and then you like there's some JavaScript function that just like you set it to some divs color and then you get computed style on it or whatever. And if it was set as, you use the color function to force it into RGB, and then when you pluck the computed style off of it, it's a hex for some reason. And then now you have the hex. You can convert OKLCH to hex like with just a couple of lines of JavaScript. It requires a little string manipulation and stuff, but it worked pretty good. It totally ignores transparency, but that was its one downside. Otherwise, it, without loading Color.js and stuff, worked. So I added that to the little web component and rock and roll. I didn't really. This wasn't for anything important. This is me just like chasing being nerd sniped by a color input. But it is surprising me. Like, why would you guess that is that in the spec or something? Like, why does it say do not show the color value to the user?
Yeah, it's weird, huh?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, I think it's supposed to do the thing where it falls back to a text input if it doesn't, and so maybe that would be like a double. I don't know. That's weird, but yeah, it's weird. It's not like the file input where it just like adds in the pseudo element for the selector. Maybe you said it. Did you use think about using the new select menu or to build your own thing? Like
no, but I'm not sure what you mean though. Like the one where you opt into the stylable one.
Yeah, because I'm
I don't
wondering.
have like a list of all colors though or anything. Like I didn't.
Yeah, list of every color ever. I wonder if you could
see that website that lists all UUIDs.
Yeah. Perfect. I just wonder, like, could you like build like a drop down like that, but instead of list items, you are presenting a color picker. Maybe that's a totally bad ARIA thing. I'm gonna back out of my statement here, but well, you could have like some predefined swatches or something, and then like a custom color picker or something. I don't know. Anyway, now I'm curious. I've built my own color picker here in my head, and I need to stop. So,
It's okay. It's just a fun little detour of life, nerd sniping as we call it.
Yeah, you get
what else we got?
Well, I was gonna say last week's show, we talked about AI or whatever. I think I'd said like, somebody wrote in about like is AI are we gonna have like left wing and right wing AI, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think we said, yeah, probably. I mean, you can look at like what's happening at X and probably abstract the future pretty easily there, right? And while we were having that conversation, another conversation was breaking out in real life or on the blogosphere. Miriam, Suzanne had a good post on like AI and sort of the billionaire club here, and kind of how it's impacting her life, so it's a really good thing about how tech continues to be political, is the name of the post. So it's worth a read. I'm just kind of like want to like flavor this conversation we had with like other conversations that were happening at the same time. And Robin Sloan had another article called "Is It Okay?" And I saw this through Jeremy Keith, I think. Actually, I'm subscribed to Robin, but I hadn't read it. And then Jeremy wrote like, "Hey, I don't know, this seems okay." And then Balder Bjarnson wrote full-throated rebuttal of that post. It was just kind of basically like, no, it's not okay. It's sort of like, I think I've always said Balder sort of takes the extreme opinion of what I feel down inside,
Yeah, love you, Balder, but it is true. Sorry.
Which is, but his post was knowledge tech. So sorry, Robin's thesis was like sort of this like, what if we could get, what if there's what if chatbots solve cancer, they cure cancer. Well, isn't that a necessary risk or whatever, And Balder's reply was, knowledge tech that's subtly wrong is more dangerous than tech that's obviously wrong. So sort of saying like this idea of like, the sort of non-deterministic nature of LLMs is maybe creates misunderstanding rather than scientific understanding. Does that make sense? And so I think he said there's no path that can take current text synthesis models and turn them into super scientists. I think that was sort of the big pull quote. And Robin replied to that, and then it wasn't sort of it made Balder more mad, and Robin kind of I want to say like his idea was like, I think like we are it is science fiction, but it's just this idea of but maybe there's something that it can unlock or something like that. And Balder was basically like, no, you can't do anything. It's bad. Adactio, Jeremy Keith gets in the mix and sort of sides with Balder here on this, and I thought it was a pretty good Jeremy's pretty sober there. Michelle Barker, I think, wrote a reply to. I can put a link in the show notes. But anyway, there's a lot going on with AI. What can it do? What's going on? And then specifically on this, are we going to have left and right wing things? I think I said I don't know how you would train an AI to be with the corpus of the internet, and in a month since Trump became president, you would shift it entirely. Well, there was an article that came out on TechCrunch where OpenAI tries to uncensor ChatGPT, which is oh, okay, what's going on here? That being kind of the biggest model, most popular model, and they basically took the they reprogrammed the safety mechanisms in or what would you say? They created new policy around the safety mechanisms of ChatGPT. And so they kind of came up with this list of we're not going to push an opinion, or we're going to present perspectives from any point, So if you're I don't know, think of the most heinous thing you could think of, and ChatGPT's yeah, man, that sounds great. Other people might say, I don't know. So it's interesting. I read through this whole document, this whole 187 page sort of how they're doing prompts and stuff like that, because I was just really interested in just how you would make a I don't know, an agendaless model that is but still has truth, So I don't know. So they're riding a very thin line. So they basically have repealed mechanisms, and they're riding a very thin line. Is sort of
Yeah,
I think
it's
the
one thing
answer
to
then.
just say what you're going to do. I see what you've linked to here. It says lists up bullet points of how we'd like it to behave. But they're also saying we changed some stuff. But I don't see a list of what was changed. Because I think that might be a little more scary or something, isn't it? What we're not seeing is a change log of we took the stuff off about racism. There was the thing that prevented it from being racist, and we deleted that. Is that implied? We don't get to see that. It's one thing to say we want a model that where there's good people on both sides or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the vibe.
What actually changed?
Yeah, I think it just, I think they kind of hint at it in these little blue text box or whatever, but just kind of we want to approach such as scientific objectivity and deliberate discourse to inform our approach to neutrality or something like that. So I don't know. Minimize editorial bias. So they which generally when you read this, you're yeah, I don't want editorial bias in my AI,
Yeah,
but
sure.
But at the same time, it's sort of are we comparing, if you're Earth is flat, which they have as an example, Earth is flat and Earth is round. I think there's an answer, and I feel it's the same with do trans people or people of color have rights? There's an answer there, that's pretty obviously a yes, so anyway, I think they sort of said avoid factual reasoning and formatting errors. It's but if you're trying to be factual, sometimes the facts bear out a political opinion, so how do you navigate around that, I don't know. So,
I mean, this stuff is so complicated. Just not an expert. A little hard to weigh in. I tend to just be on the side of safety and responsibility, whatever that tends to mean. And we already know that that's not the jam. You started the company of talking about OpenAI as like a, let's do this nonprofit. Let's do this for the good of the world. And it took 2 seconds after some success to be like, let's bring this baby in-house. Let's have a $200 plan. Let's tell people it's worth $1,000. Let's make most of what we talk about. Crazy science fiction stuff that's very business oriented, not like what's good for the world. Like, I see what you're saying. And I'm not even against all of it necessarily, but like, I just see where you're going. Like, the point of this is extracting profit from words on the internet. That's the point. So like, you're going to change policies to help that goal because that's all you talk about? Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, I mean, or you're like you're going for broader appeal over sort of like safety, stuff, or who knows, So it's kind of anyway. I can put links in the show notes, but it's
a
worth
pretty hot
reading.
blogging week,
It was
wasn't
kind
it? With all the back and forths.
Yeah, back and forth
nice.
blogs about blogs. I think that's like really good. So, yeah,
it is. Yeah, and I still see. I hate to say both sides of this again because it's such a loaded term these days, but like, I can feel how Robin thinks about this, Robin Sloan. And he's like, look, this stuff is absolutely wild already. Look at what these things can do. It's the most science fiction-y thing ever that's just happening right in front of our eyes. Unbelievable what they can do. And there has been a rate of growth that have made these things better and better and better and better. Unbelievable. How can you just look at all that and be like, there's no more science fiction left? That where this is going to go, we've squeezed out the science fiction towel. You will no longer be amazed after this. Like, that's not going to happen. So to hear him talking about, especially as an author who writes science fiction books for a living, to be like, I can see a world where this is headed towards a super science situation, like, just feels very like, of course I understand his perspective on that. It has a ring of like, yeah, probably kind of thing to it, while everybody else is like ringing the safety bells is even more pertinent.
Yeah. I think there's like, probably pessimists and cautious optimists, and then sort of, I think there's also people who are just full evangelicals about it, like it's going to solve every problem. I mean, I can't escape it, man. I went to pizza and I, had a conversation about AI, with a lawyer who's like making his own apps using ChatGPT. And I'm, at some point, and I can't say it's a bad thing. I can't say like, at a certain point, I think the software is going to let you down, but it is cool. You like I think it's going to code itself into a corner, and you're not going to be able to fix it, and maybe the software can't. But for like creating little apps or widgets or automating little processes, they do like maybe that works. Like maybe it works for them. I don't think he's like on the like I'm just going to AI lawyer instead of do actual lawyer. I don't think he's on that train, but I think he's also like. Maybe it's like summarize this bunch of text or whatever, so I don't have to like, and let me know if there's anything in here that's related to XYZ or something like that. Maybe that's useful. I don't know. So
I don't know how. I spent a decent amount of time being mad about the ain't nobody asked me, slurping up the entire internet and ignoring copyright. All this stuff is still. It's not like I've really changed or seen any differences on that. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not ready to like hang up the towel on technology yet. Like, I can't. It's the only skill I have. Like, I need to be in this industry for a while longer. And, some part of it is kind of fun, especially because I feel like I come at tech from a little bit of this. Like, I like the tech and I like the UI and UX around tech. And it happens to be kind of like a popping off place to be at the moment of like, how can we design around these things? Not that I'm really participating that much, but I'm certainly using it, to be like, I'm in my VS Code and then I'm trying Cursor and I'm trying Windsurf and I'm trying Tray and I'm trying Augment and I'm trying all this stuff because like it's like, ooh, how do they do it? Oh, look, what are their key commands? Oh, that one pops up inside the editor. Oh, this one pops up when I select text. That's a nice take on it. There's a lot of like UI UX stuff that's fun to watch as part of it. Not to mention, like, I've been doing a bunch of coding lately that's like, it feels like it's actually helping me. Where I'm like having a problem with like in a Vite config, but it's one that I don't need to know intimately. It's just a side project. I'm like, can you just update this Vite config to proxy at this URL and put in the hot module reloading there? And it's like, no problem. Here you go. I'm like, sick, thanks. That saved me so many minutes, man. And so to do that, to just be like, to worry about whether that thing that helped me, what its political position was like, I can't right now. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I want safety bells to be there, but like sometimes in the tech specific, coding specific stuff, I'm like, I don't know. I'm a part of it. Call me the devil.
Well, I think it's a big thing, and there's been a lot of VC, and it's the only thing, man. Like that is exciting tech. It's the only heartbeat that exists, right? And so I feel like people are just like doing this, adding it to get funding, so it's in everything. So you kind of have to talk about it. I think there is some utility to like Copilot saying like, hey, like, here's some, like, just hit tab and what you were kind of already starting to write auto completes, like just like on my phone when I send a text message,
Yeah. In a way, it kind of helps you think. I was listening to I still like that show Search Engine with PJ Bo. You should listen to it. It's good stuff. He had an AI one on the other day, but it was like a story that's like old news, I feel like, but that's just how he rolls sometimes. And it was kind of about the homework story of like, now that we have ChatGPT, is your English homework dead? Kind of. So it's not behind, but it's like, that's still there. I'm sure high schools are still very much struggling with that, or all levels of education, really. But there was a moment in it, some dude who, I think he was a McSweeney's dude or something, it has a book about writing in the age of AI. And he just has this simple point that I think is strong, that like when you let a machine write for you, that you aren't benefiting from the regular process of writing. And writing is a struggly, difficult, hard thing to do. But guess what it does for you? It helps you freaking think. Duh. It doesn't have to be a book that you're writing. It could just be on a piece of paper. It could be your diary. It could be anything. I just mean writing very generically. If you start leaning on tools that write for you too heavily, you really are robbing yourself of thinking, and crucially, he always pairs them together, thinking and feeling. How does it feel to write these words? Like, are you representing yourself in that way? And then probably ultimately you're communicating something as well. And so that thinking, feeling, and communicating is such a big deal. And like, don't kids. Don't generate too much text. You need to use these tools differently. But I feel like sometimes from the coding aspect, it's like almost helping me think, because I want to think through this code. I'm thinking about it right now. It's all up in my brain. But sometimes when the AI can just help autocomplete me and like speed up that part, so I don't have to like stop thinking and go look up syntax or whatever, or I'm in TypeScript and I can just hover over something and see what parameters it wants and what types they are. It's actually helping me think, not robbing me of thinking.
And that's my hope too, is like these become tools for thinking, not tools for outsourcing thinking. That's where I've been in conversations where people just kind of like, I've thought through this, am I missing anything? I'll just ask ChatGPT, ask Chad what it says, or what, like, what's another word for blah, 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 kind of like thesaurus.com style stuff, so like, and that seems, other than the enormous sort of ethical sort of considerations there, like it is like, that seems like a pretty naive fine use of an LLM. It's good at sort of modeling language, right? So, yeah. So it's a tough conversation.
I can see disagreements happening there too. Is that is the absolute nature of them. There is no technological innovation that's happening yet that is anything beyond it's trained on a bunch of words that already exist, and it gets better at piecing those words together based on that knowledge. It's not inventing new knowledge. It cannot do that.
Yeah.
It can make interesting connections. It certainly can help you think. It can help you research. It can help you reformat things. It can summarize things. It can expand on things, yada, yada, yada. Do all that stuff, but it cannot do new science. Probably. Right? Unless there's some world in which it reads all existing science and then can just somehow see gaps in it or something, or that a scientific breakthrough comes in a gap instead of an epiphany.
Yeah, well, and I didn't want to I don't want to go toe to toe with Balder in a blog post. Not my dream job, Chris. But empirical sciences, probably not going to have a breakthrough because that's just statistics. That's probably more, and I think this is what Michelle was saying, was that's more the territory of an ML model, like a machine learning, analyzing statistics and things like that. But there's a lot of social sciences, and maybe there's a common thread in social sciences and papers, or maybe there's a connection thread between, different papers and in medical journals and things like that, maybe there's something to that, I do think those are all being rapidly polluted by LLMs, so that's a huge concern. So you have to think about that. There's a post, AI is Stifling Tech Adoption, by Veil.rocks, which was it's just interesting, but this is something I didn't know. Claude, if you ask Claude, Anthropic's Claude, about code, built into Claude is the system prompts that got leaked, and it says only use React and Tailwind. So it's just this sort of idea of AI is stifling tech adoption because it's only going to tell you about these things because they're the best things, and therefore there you go.
That's secretly baked in somehow when you ask it to scaffold something.
Yeah, I think somebody had leaked the system prompts or something like that. So. Anyway, so that's sort of this sort of, not gross, but, sort of oh, I didn't know that. So that's something to consider. Not only, if you want to use something outside of React, Recharts, ShadCN, and Lucid Icons, in Cloudflare CDN, maybe you're going to have to use something different, So anyway, that was just a sort of an interesting, and I felt that before too. I think I asked that bolt.new, can you make me a web component site, blah, blah, and it totally just spin up a React site, and so it's just there you go. The skills aren't out there right now. So, anyway, that's just kind of pulling it back to that bias in LLMs
it's
question.
I get that's popular now, and you're making a product for users. You can do whatever it wants, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's certainly a rich gets richer situation where the popular tech just gets more popular.
Sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And I just want it to be smarter. It's cool that you can do that, but it's really cool doing what I ask you to do.
Well, or the context. Look at what is in this folder I'm working on, and tell me make it good for this folder. Look at this folder. Tell me what's good about here, or what can be better. So I don't know. I need to. To be on it. I don't. Other than autocomplete, I really don't probably leverage LLMs to a degree that is sophisticated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have a process. I don't have a quick prompt that generates me a website and pushes it to Vercel. I don't have that. So maybe I don't know. I'm not saying I need to invest in the tooling, but like maybe I'd have better or different opinions if I have spent more time on the tooling. But I don't. Beyond, I don't know. Just
That is a good
fancy
point.
autocomplete. So.
That's another one that, like I'm still part of this industry too. I want to make sure that I'm like using it right. I got some muscle memory at some point where like you just type in the prompt and you get the stuff and then that's fine. But really, that's already so antiquated. Like, it seems like most people have really, and this is what ChatGPT was supposed to do from day one. I get that you're supposed to like keep conversing with it. For some reason, I just never quite nailed that muscle memory of like, you need to keep asking it. Like, I think a lot of people have like 10, 12 back and forths before they're even consider using the output, like and I think that's just kind of interesting.
Well, I'm like 0 for 10 right now, so maybe I just need to keep trying.
Yeah. I did get in a loop the other day where I was trying to ask it to do something and it just could not do it. Any one of them. I tried different ones and it's just like there wasn't enough. You could tell like its model it couldn't do it. And it tried like 6 different ways, maybe more than that. And then it would like loop back to the first way and try it again. Never did it throw up its arms and be like, listen, I don't know.
Yeah. There's no like, there's no like ultimate understanding of itself and its limitations, right? Like that's like, it's just never is like, you know what, dude, I'm not good at this. So you should probably hire somebody. Here's a list of people to hire.
Oh yeah, that would be like, nice.
I think that I've seen that too. It's just, you're not going to figure this out. So I should quit wasting my time.
It's not always the machine. It's like sometimes it's like I'm just not, because to be fair, I didn't like change what I was giving it all that much. It was like a Go problem where there's like I was trying to save something or something, and it was one of those nil pointer dereference things, but it wasn't that simple. It was like really, it was deep in there. It needed access to like 15 files. And it could not figure it out. I really wanted to just like change some really surface level stuff, and that's just not what it needed. Anyway, it should, not that I wanted it to give up necessarily. It just was an interesting observation.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It doesn't give up. It'll keep trying. It'll keep spinning up GPUs to solve the problem. So.
Yeah. There's one of these ones has like a costometer on it. I forget which one it is, but you can run one that like needs to send up enough tokens and dig around enough and whatever. That's about something like 7 cents a go. Mm-hmm. And you're like, dang, that's money, yo. Yeah.
That's I have a secret blog post about the black boxes of AI. Do you want me to mouth blog it real quick?
Yes, I would love that.
All right, let's go do a mouth blog. It's so for me, there's like 7 or 8 black boxes of AI, right? The first one's the data, right? With what data was the model trained? Was it stolen from the internet? Was it ethically sourced? Was it ethically validated, or what do they call it? Like where humans kind of look over things and I guess fine-tuned or something, but
okay.
And then like, does it have like RAG, which is the retrieval augmented generation or something? But it's basically what
is RAG? Is it RAG? Is the one where it's like,
has like
it not only has what you asked it and its model, but like also your whole code base.
Yeah, sort of. It's sort of like when you get those little attribution links and it's like this answer came from this website or whatever. It's sort of like it links back. It's basically this other database that's encoded, and it has like the URL or where it came from, and then it has the text all whatever vectorized and encoded. And so like, is that part like, does it have that is sort of like a yes or no, like, does it have like citations for its data? Because I care about that, right? Mm-hmm. I happen to know Microsoft has this thing called GraphRag, which is also very interesting to me, but I won't get into it exactly. But it's just this idea of like, it does that like RAG thing where you like have attributed sources, but it also like creates this little synopsis. So it's like Chris talked about Flexbox, and so it'd have Chris and Flexbox linked together. So it's sort of like this like, summarizes it and then vectorizes it, and then on top of that, anyway. So it's like two-factor almost, or sort of citation. But anyway, and then the next black box is training. Like, how was it trained? Like, what are the weights and the layers and prompting, fine-tuning? I found out, like, Ollama has all these weights and stuff. Ollama.com has, like, a lot of these weights and stuff like that listed on there. So that's kind of interesting. But, if I downloaded DeepSeek and I ran it and trained it on my computer, would I get the same MD5 hash at for the final binary? You know what I mean? Like,
would you?
I don't know. That's something I don't know. So, then the other black box, I'll just go through these. Energy, like what is the cost of a model? Like cost to train, cost per query. And then like, I assume you're not just training one model at a time. You're probably training 100 models and only one makes it out the door. So like, what is the cost of that? Like what is the cost in dollars?
Oh, that's interesting.
What is the cost in gigawatts? Like I've heard like the whole, like, 500 milliliters per conversation and stuff like that. But I would love to know like concrete costs, right? Like, privacy is another black box.
I'm
like,
interested in that water one too. It seems like an interesting metric that to me kind of came out of nowhere. I haven't seen it used in other conversations as much, but it's like, we know that matter is not created or destroyed, right? So like, what does that mean? That where does the water go then? If it uses water, is it bad water that needs to be treated then? Did it become dirty in its usage? Did it get too hot and it's got to be cooled down? Or where does it go? Doesn't it just keep going down the river at some point?
Well, it would evaporate on a cooler, right? And then go up into the cloud or whatever, right? Like, go up into, sorry, not the cloud, and turn into a cloud, but at some of these, like, you don't just put like water in the water cooling system. You put like sludge, like you put like a solution, you make it into a solution. And so like that water will take years
to
become water again. Right.
Like,
yeah.
it's
More or less.
water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then I don't know, not to simp my company too much, but I do know like they've like been investing in like trying to reuse water, like make it a closed system and stuff like that. So that's something that, again, I don't know this stuff. Privacy, what happens when I type into the box? Who gets that data? Does that data train another model in the future? Does that prompt get stored? What happens? I don't know. The model I'm interacting with, is it machine learning, image gen, LLM, small LLM? Does it have retrieval? Does it have just text embeddings? Is it just like a Postgres search, like, is that it? Because I don't hate Postgres search, accuracy. How are the outputs judged? Like, who's judging the accuracy of it? Like, and how are hallucinations tracked? How do human biases fit in?
This is a hell of a picture of mysterious things that happen.
Cost. How much is this going to cost me? This is the same problem I have with Cloudinary. Like, I know it's 7 florps per blip, but like, what does that equal? If I hook this up to my business, like, and then like societal impact, how's this going to impact society? Like my kids in high school, stuff like that. Are we becoming dumber? Are we creating more bugs? I don't know. So these are just general, like these, just big list of black boxes that I don't know. I'm in a position where I could possibly learn about this stuff. So I really want to like have an open mind in that sense. Like I want to kind of like learn, but I also want to like, understand what's going on sort of across all these.
I hope you do this blog post. That's a lot of mystery. I mean, some of that mystery could be attributed to non-AI products too, but there's way more with.
Well, but and then as a technologist, we tend to want to avoid black boxes, right? So why are we just saying, oh yeah, heckin', let's go, but and so maybe it's maybe I need Swix on the show or something to kind of explain all this to me. But like I'm just kind of like these questions I have, so I'm just kind of openly sort of trying to figure them out. So,
That
I don't know.
Stuff could change any minute, though. I used one of these tools. I probably shouldn't even say this, but like one of the things that it did was just like when you onboard and open a folder, a new project, it just tries to figure out everything that's going on. It like onboards itself. I mean, maybe it's just getting ready to rag it up,
Mm-hmm.
But like that. It didn't ask my own computer that stuff. It had to go somewhere, So probably an awful lot of code just went up to the sky, got LLMized, and came back. And now it's smarter, theoretically, and it's going to help me out more and know more about my code base. And that's good. Like, they're trying to do good there, but like at no obvious point was it like, don't worry, bro. We're not going to do anything with that code. And it's like, cool, maybe they did say that. And I like they made that promise or something, but I don't remember hearing it or reading it or agreeing to it or forcing it or anything. And then even if I did, one guy at the company could just be like, derp, and flip a little switch and be like, actually, I'm going to save all that stuff real quick.
Yeah, I know why his butt itches, like they just, yeah.
Because you're incentivized to do so. What if you had, I don't know, it's just an easy way to download all of GitHub or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
but like the private one, the what you don't have access to.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I met a guy and, he was asking me like, do you know about AI? And I was like, I don't know, man. Sure. And he was, like, he's a photographer. Did I tell this story? I feel like I told this story.
I don't think so.
He's a photographer, and he was like, is it possible to train like a AI on my photography? So he's like, like wants to build a little tiny dolly or stable diffusion on his own art that he is, he's a photographer.
Okay.
And so like,
I think that's kind of doable, but
I think so. I don't know how to, what
I don't think you're training a full
apps.
new model though. You're more like making it part of the prompt or something. Like,
yeah. I think
here's
you're
a bunch
fine tuning or something. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
even that's not the right word, I think. But
okay.
But I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. But
it's that
anyway,
middle one. Make it like these.
And so like, again, hand waving about the entire ethics of like slurping all of Behance or down onto or Dribble or whatever onto your LLM. But like if you were like like if you're an artist and you're like, I want to, somebody came to me and said, hey, can you take, get us a picture of a penguin in Antarctica? He can either fly to Antarctica and try to get the perfect shot, or he could say like, for less than the cost of a plane ticket, I can just LLMify you a picture of a photo in the style of my art of a penguin from Antarctica or something like that. You know what I mean? Like he could kind of create a shop, create art based on his art. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of this like, what's the ethics of that? Like he's really just sort of, stealing from himself. I don't know. But
that's
but
interesting.
if
That could be a good sci-fi story.
so,
like in the future, you only have to do 100 paintings or write 100 articles, and once you hit that threshold,
yeah, you never have to do anything again.
Yeah, you never have to do anything again.
Oh my gosh, maybe that's it. And it's just a bunch of people trying to get to 100. It's like not even the 10,000 steps.
Oh, yeah, but that's the twist is that people are just so stupid and lazy that it's just really hard to even get to 100,
Well, yeah. And then once you hit 100, everyone can get to 100. So like what you really got to get to is 1,000, So it's just this like the Joneses, man. So anyway, keeping up. So
why is that? The fact that it went up by a power of 10 made me think of listen to one of those dumb dad joke reels the other day that was like, God, you hear that, the population of Ireland is it's exponentially growing. The capital city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Dublin.
Nice. Good. That's a good, yeah.
It's Dublin, love.
I mean, we could probably just wrap the show up on that, man. I think that's a good one. Yeah, thank you, dear listener, for downloading this at your podcatcher's choice. Be sure to star, favorite up, shard it up. That's how people find out about the show. Follow us on the good ones, Mastodon and Blue Sky. And then, join us where the party is over in the Discord, patreon.com/shoptalkshow. Chris, you got anything else you'd like to say?
Shoptalkshow.com.